Alright, well this is kind of new for me. Normally I only talk about movies on here, but once in a blue moon there's a TV show that gets my attention, for better or worse, and makes me consider making a video for it. Besides American Horror Stories a few years ago, none of those other shows made the final cut until today. Yeah, so Pretty Little Liars, the OG show, has given me multiple video ideas. Never seen The Perfectionist or whatever the hell Ravenswood is, but I did manage to catch both seasons of Max's new revamp, and y'all are really questioning why this was canceled? Now look, before the pitchforks and torches come out, I just want to say that the series was not all bad as a whole. It had the right idea and spirit at times, and hey, if there's a new director or producer that could be petitioned along with bringing back the show, I'd be all for it. But the way the series stands now, my god, did this show waste so much potential with lackluster storylines, no scares, characters with some likable qualities but no charm. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get into all of that, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and leave a like, comment, whatever will get me out of this shitty algorithm hell. Either way, it really helps the channel out a lot and is deeply appreciated. But anyways, with that all being said, let's get into it. So to give a little bit of a background on how the show even came to be, on September 2nd of 2020, it was announced that a new Pretty Little Liars series was in development at Warner Bros. With Riverdale creator Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa taking over as showrunner from I, Marlene Keene. Original Sin takes place within the same continuity as the previous television series, but follows new characters and storylines in a new setting. Following that, on September 24th of 2020, HBO Max gave the series a direct-to-series order of 10 episodes and was named Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, with Aguirre-Sacasa teaming up with Lindsay Calhoun to develop the series. Production companies involved with the series are Alloy Entertainment and Warner Bros. Television, so if you're pissed with anybody, be pissed at those studios. Season 1 aired in mid to late 2022, and following the success of Season 1, on September 7th of 2022, HBO Max renewed the series for a second season, retitled as Pretty Little Liars Summer School. Which of course leads us to today, where on September 20th of 2024, it was confirmed that Max sadly canceled the series after 2 seasons. Now, when I read this announcement, there was no shock whatsoever, for me at least, but online, more specifically Reddit, it seems there's a bit of an outrage regarding the cancellation. Many of these posts, not all of them, but many of them are filled with tons of bias and baseless claims on why the show was canceled, which, I mean, obviously it's the internet. But I was noticing a lack of posts on the opposite end of the spectrum, which some said are due to being attacked for just having a different opinion. However, I'm not scared of my opinion being different and people getting pissy over it, so I figured maybe this could be a way to bring some of the show's flaws to light. So there may be some clarity as to why the show was canceled besides executives just being dickheads. So getting into what's wrong with it and also what worked for it, we're gonna have to go back for a sec and take a look at Season 1. So Season 1 starts off in perfect Pretty Little Liars spirit. 20 years ago, a series of tragic events almost ripped the blue-collar town of Millwood apart. Now in the present day, a group of disparate teen girls, a brand new set of liars, find themselves tormented by an unknown assailant. So starting off with a recap, the first season follows a group of teen girls who attend Millwood High School. While each has their own interests and struggles, they are drawn together by a mysterious figure who calls themselves A. Rather than just being tormented with information and secrets, A begins to build up a bit of a body count, implicating the girls in the killing spree. The girls in question, aka the liars, are Imogen Adams, played by Bailey Madison, Tabby Hayworth, played by Chandler Kenny, Theron Bryant, played by Zaria, Mouse and Rada, played by Malia Piles, and Noah Olivar, played by Maya Rifus. Anyways, their mothers were best friends in high school, and while the girls have little in common in the present day, the sins of the past come back to haunt them all, and ultimately is what brings them together. Season 1 begins with a scene from 1999, the first taste viewers get of the title's original sin. A teenage girl staggers into a party begging her friends for help. They all ignore her, which prompts the girl to throw herself from the rafters of the warehouse. Throughout the season, the audience is given crumbs of what led her to such a desperate action. But moving back to the present, we're first introduced to Imogen, whose personal tragedies launched the whole saga. She is a pregnant teenager, and her best friends abandoned her after Imogen was seen kissing Karen Beasley's boyfriend. Despite not initiating the kiss, she is completely rejected by Karen and her twin sister Kelly, taking her from one of the most popular girls in school to a social outcast. Gotta miss high school. Anyways, while Imogen might be able to manage this with the support of her mother, Davy Adams receives a mysterious note referencing the New Year's Eve party from 1999. Imogen and Karen end up stumbling upon Davy, who appears to have committed suicide in the bathtub. So ultimately, this is what kickstarts Imogen to begin investigating exactly what happened back in 1999. During Imogen's first week back at school, she and the other main characters have confrontations with Karen, who is eager to ruin their lives. No shock there. Imogen declares that she plans to run against Karen for Spirit Queen, but she and the other 4 wind up in detention after being framed for crimes against Karen. Really living up to the name there, babe. Anyways, there they decide to show a video of Karen drunk at a party during a double feature at Tabby's job. In revenge, Karen and Kelly decide to pull a Carrie by giving Imogen the title of Spirit Queen and plan to dump red paint on her during the school dance. However, a terrifying masked man appears and pushes one of the twins from the rafters to her death. So this is where they receive their first official A message, threatening to kill them if they tell what they saw. It's then revealed that the twin who died was Karen, and her father, Sheriff Beasley, is eager to blame the girls for their part in it. This is particularly dangerous for Noah, who is still on probation after taking the blame for her mother's drug abuse. So desperate to figure out who the killer is and what A refers to, Imogen begins digging into what happened in 1999. The girl who died, she learns, was named Angela Waters, and she was both adopted and also tormented by the girls' mothers. From here, the story splinters following each of the liars' individual struggles. Tabby teams up with her best friend Chip to produce a gender-swapped version of Psycho. Farron begins to suspect that Kelly is actually Karen, which she pursues despite multiple warnings to stop digging. She doesn't. Mouse begins a dangerous game, meeting up with a man named Steve Bowers, whose daughter was abducted to give him a sense of push. Like, see, what the fuck does this have to do with any... Anyways, finally, Noah is chased by the hooded figure, who then forces her to report her mother for stealing drugs from the hospital. Throughout all of this, there are 2 key mysteries that the characters have to investigate. First and foremost, they need to find out who A is and how they are connected to Angela Waters. However, they do have to also solve a much more sinister question, which is who is the father of Imogen's baby. Imogen was raped on the same night that she lost Karen and Kelly as friends, but she has no memory of who did it. Horrifically, the same thing happened to Tabby, who has been experiencing symptoms of PTSD ever since it happened. They then hatch a plan to test the DNA of the boys in the school against Imogen's unborn child using a school blood drive to collect samples. So as the investigation continues, Farron and Mouse learn more about their own pasts. Farron underwent surgery to correct scoliosis as a child, but she discovers that it was done against doctors' recommendations, as her mother was more interested in her being successful at ballet than the potential risks that were involved. Because of this, Farron suffers from chronic pain. Mouse's backstory, again, it's a little complicated. It turns out that she's been trying to help parents who have had abducted children because she was nearly taken as a child. However, her mothers refuse to talk about the incident, which results in her endangering herself trying to make sense of what happened. Anyways, after sending her mother an anonymous threatening text, Mouse learns that the man who had tried to abduct her as a child was actually her biological father. Her mother had been a surrogate, but she had stolen the child after giving birth. When she tries to reach out to her father, however, he rejects her, sending her further into the arms of an increasingly obsessive Steve. Heading into the final 2 episodes of the season, it seems like all of the answers are out there. A man named Crazy Joe, who had first offered Imogen and Tabby information about Angela Waters and then chased Imogen around the Waters home with a knife, is dead and claimed to be A. The moms finally told the girls the truth, most of it anyways, but that would be too easy. See, Sheriff Beasley goes off the rails, threatening his family and Farron after she goes after him. Imogen's mother's body is dug up and stolen, and there was a match from the DNA testing to Imogen's baby. The 5 girls are lured to the school to confront their bullies and to see their mothers be punished for their past crimes. Each is given the chance to do something horrific to someone who hurt them. Tabby is given the chance to mark her rapist. Noah is invited to force her mom's drug dealer to overdose. Mouse is supposed to torture Steve for touring with her. I love that one. Farron is given a tattoo gun and told to scar her ballet teacher. I'm not sure exactly what Madame Yuri did, but okay. Finally, Imogen is told to remove her mother's diary pages from inside her corpse's mouth to learn the truth. Wow, I forgot all about that one. Anyways, when they meet back up, they claim that they all refuse to do it, except for Imogen. This is why I love Bailey Madison. But from there, they're then guided to the school auditorium where all of the season's main secrets then come to life. So major spoilers ahead, but you clicked on this video because you're obviously upset that it was canceled. So if you didn't watch the show, this would be kind of awkward then. So getting into the final episode, it answers almost every question that the first 9 episodes posed. Here's every major mystery, how it was resolved, and where it was left at the end of season 1. So first and foremost, who the fuck is A? Who is A? A is actually 2 people, not just 1. Been there, done that, Scream. The brains behind the operation turns out to be Millwood High's principal, Marshall Clanton. He was secretly Angela's father and watched the torment that the mothers put his daughter through. The Brawn, aka the man in the mask, is Archie Waters, Hey, Archie, you get it, you get it. Angela's deformed twin. While Principal Clinton was fully committed to revenge, no matter how many innocents were hurt, Archie seems to have a moral code, primarily only attacking those who have done horrible things, particularly those that are similar to what happened to his sister. So he may be a serial killer, but hey, he's got a code. He's got a moral code. Basically an anti-hero at best. So in the end though, very lame finale. Tabby knocks Principal Clinton out with her film teacher's nameplate. Yeah. He was arrested and remains in jail at the end of the first season. Archie was stabbed by Imogen while trying to kill her, leaving him unconscious in the hospital. However, of course, he wakes up. He wakes up on Christmas Day and escapes, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake, which I'm being generous with that because maybe 2 people died. Anyways, though, this was because Tom was dating Imogen's mother, Davy, at the time. Rather than punishing her boyfriend for his crimes, Davy decided to erase Angela. She and the other girls convinced the entire school to act like Angela just didn't exist. Even when Angela was begging for someone to acknowledge her, Davy pretended to apologize to Angela, inviting her to the New Year's Eve party as a fresh start. However, when Angela showed up to the party, clearly distraught, Davy ordered the others to continue ignoring her. This is ultimately what led Angela to commit suicide. While Clinton agreed that Beasley needed to be punished, his primary focus was on killing the mothers and their daughters. Meanwhile, Clinton agreed that Beasley needed to be punished. His primary focus was on killing the mothers and their daughters because their rejection of Angela was what made her hopeless enough to jump. However, he planned to frame the sheriff for the murders to make him pay too. The liars, with an assist from Kelly, stopped Clinton before he could kill any of them or their mothers. Tom Beasley had been stabbed by his wife when he threatened to kill his daughter, which landed him in the hospital. When Archie escaped from his own hospital room, he then stabs Beasley to death before his escape. So you got all that? You're still there because we're not done yet. Following that major plot point up, in a heartbreaking yet believable twist, Imogen and Tabby's rapist was not one of the football players as they had suspected, but someone that they both knew. Chip is the one that raped them both, Tabby because she had rejected him, and Imogen because he was angry at Tabby and she just happened to be there. While Imogen was originally just collateral damage in his rejection rampage, Chip had also gotten close to her months later as she and Tabby became friends. They started dating, and he showed a keen interest in supporting her during the more trying moments of her pregnancy. After getting him to confess, Imogen and Tabby sicked A on Chip, telling him he hurt us, the same way Tom Beasley hurt Angela Waters. This led to him being Tabby's temptation during the confrontation at the school. He was arrested for his actions, but was then released on bail for Christmas. Though it seemed that Imogen and Tabby would have to face a brutal trial after everything else they had suffered, Archie came for Chip after escaping the hospital. The final shot of the season heavily implies that he kills Chip, but true Pretty Little Liar fans know that an off-screen kill can always be undone. But in this case, it's not. He's dead. Now, interestingly, one of Imogen's major subplots was trying to figure out if her mother actually committed suicide or if she had been murdered. After all, Karen's death had been ruled a suicide when they all knew that it wasn't. This was especially important to Imogen because she refused to accept that her mother would abandon her when she needed her most. Imogen got authorization for her mother's body to be exhumed for an autopsy, but A stole it before the tests could be conducted. According to Principal Clinton, they did not kill Davy, they had simply sent her the flyer to trigger her guilt. However, that mystery was only solved in words, not with proof, since Imogen accepted Clinton at his word and wanted to move forward. Her mother was reburied, seemingly without conducting the autopsy. It is still entirely possible that Clinton was lying or that Davy was killed by someone else, perhaps, Season 1 is absolutely packed with plot points with so many twists and turns that it's honestly hard to capture them all, despite whether or not they were good or bad, because most of them were bad. Now, while the biggest mysteries were solved, there are still plenty of questions for the show to answer in the next season, which is what happened to Angela's mother, Rose Waters. Other questions have more to do with the secrets that the liars might still be keeping. Now, while there was some compelling evidence that Kelly was who she said she was, this franchise loves to play around with twin swaps. Furthermore, any of the girls could have done something to their bullies in the finale and then lied about it. Finally, Imogen gave up her baby in an open adoption to OG liar Aria and her husband Ezra. The last one was a straight up choice. You want to make Ezra a dad after okay. Well, that's a wrap on season 1, I guess. General thoughts. I don't think the show was unwatchable, at least not at this point in time. There was quite a bit to like and even love, though I had issues from the get-go. The trailer made the show seem like it would be a throwback to 80s slashers and horror movies and all that. I'm a huge Scream fan, horror, obviously, so I was game. Then I watched the actual show, and so here's the thing. The show presented itself as this horror slasher mystery show, and what we got was not that. So, saying the names of horror movies to call out or relate to a situation going on in your life at that moment is not a reference or even a callback to slasher tropes. You're just naming it. Looking at you, Tabby, which I'm very bummed about. Her character is how I feel like I would view myself, but after that, I really sat back and reflected if me being a movie nerd is really just that cringy IRL, because oof. Only a few people could pull off a Randy-esque character, and Tabby unfortunately missed the mark. Just my opinion. Her overall arc was pretty good, given that she starts the season off filming guys in the locker room without consent. Right, okay. Not sure what that has to do with the movies. You know, moving on. The rest of the girls are all fine and stand out a bit in their own way. Tabby's the movie nerd, Mouse is just a normal nerd, Farron is a dancer, Noah's in track, she's a runner, and Imogen is pregnant, which, yeah, nothing wrong with that other than that the character is obviously safe for the duration of the show. Yeah, she's the final girl. But still, telegraphing safety for a character is just so, you know what, getting back to my first point, the horror from the show was so not there. The trailer and the very first episode of the show made it seem as if this would be Pretty Little Liars meets Scream meets Halloween. It's none of those things. This show seemed like it had an identity crisis, which, given that this is from the same creator of Riverdale, this should surprise no one. The show starts off heavy with the flashbacks, the stingy horror music, a chase, and even a brutal kill to kick things off, along with all the world and character building that the first episode sets the stage with. Then after that, it's just one contrived, then forgotten mess after another. Karen and Kelly's dad, the sheriff, also a predator, and blackmails those that are on probation. That doesn't do a damn thing to the actual storyline. Neither did Wes being creepy towards Tabby. Enough with the predatory storylines. Speaking of, two characters mentioned above earlier are the victims of SA. I understand, real world topics. They're important to touch on. I get it, but not for what this show is trying to go for, or made it seem like what it was going for. The SA, the suicide, the inappropriate authority figure, dull and wooden romances, terrible parents. I mean, I guess all staples of Pretty Little Liars, realistically, but the trailer promises horror, and from that first episode on, I wanted more horror, like Karen's death, which was an actual nice nod to Carrie, the way that it played out. A not good example would be Tabitha mentioning Hereditary based on how Karen's mom screamed at her funeral. Ew, not fun, not a reference, you're just naming a movie, stop it. Or A, somehow being underneath the bleachers in the middle of the school day, perfectly underneath the girls to reach for. Oh, and then kills a random janitor at the end. Like, why? Y'all aren't even choosing good horror tropes to not reference properly. More good examples, though, would be Noah's chase through her apartment building by A. Some of the texts felt Scream-esque, so that was nice. The show looked great and was shot very well. Has a great score, aside from some of the younger pop music that they used here and there that didn't fit. The spirit was there, like I said, but it just falls completely flat and dull by the time it ends. Nearly no one actually important dies. Unnecessary and just weird storylines are gone with no explanation. The killer isn't even someone that the characters really know, besides the principal being the mastermind, which, like, really? Then the cliffhanger ending with A not being dead and killing Sheriff Beasley, Chip off screen, who deserved way worse, like, yeah. Loose ends, dropped storylines, characters that lacked any real charm besides Tabby, I guess. Pieces of shit characters like Noah's mom. As far as the liars go, they were fine and there should be no comparison, but if you're gonna make a Pretty Little Liars show in the same universe as the OG show, it's kind of hard not to, and while Aria, Emily, Hannah, Spencer, and Allison weren't perfect characters, they had charm and chemistry that was just unmatched there. Now, this show only had 2 seasons, so there isn't as much time to get to know each other and build that bond, but it's almost non-existent, even in summer school, for the Liars. Honestly, it was a really solid start at the very beginning of the season for Original Sin, but it just ended up really missing the mark for me and coming off as a cheap CW imitation of Pretty Little Liars rather than a contained Pretty Little Liars story that does its own thing with the slasher genre while maintaining continuity in the same universe. Granted, that's a tall order, but with Ravenswood being not that great from what I read, and The Perfectionists being canceled with a cliffhanger, I just simply believe that Pretty Little Liars fans deserved better than this season, and should actually take a look at what was wrong with the show from the get-go instead of baseless claims on why it was canceled. This show looked as if it was attempting to draw in OG Pretty Little Liars fans and horror fans, and honestly, it could have just done a lot better. Now we have season 2, Summer School. Oh, Summer School. Our Pretty Little Liars face a fate worse than death, Summer School. However, Millwood High isn't the only thing getting in the way of their fun summer jobs and new dreamy love interests. A new villain who may or may not have a connection to A has come to town and is going to put them all to the test. I really couldn't make that sound any more exciting than it is because it's not. Getting into the recap for summer school, let's start off with the girls. The liars have definitely changed between season 1 and 2. Overall, each of the liars had an interesting storyline individually, shockingly, or at least most of them anyway. Imogen was still dealing with her mom's death, giving up her baby. Oh yeah, and she ends up not giving her baby to Ezra and Arya after getting creepy vibes from the Ezra dude. Like, great, but just mentioned in a throwaway line? Okay. Oh, and of course she's still dealing with the trauma of what happened to them in season 1. Tabby was still reeling from Chip sexually assaulting her and Imogen and trying to process the trauma of it all. Farron found strength but had to learn that she didn't have anything to prove and she was pushing herself too far. All pretty fine, average storylines there. And this season though, all 5 of the girls have romance storylines this time, with Greg actually surprising me. His character changes a lot and for the better. Tabby and Christian have their cute little horror movie nerd relationship. I am disappointed though that Johnny and Imogen broke up. He was a cutie, though I can't blame him, and I also don't blame her for the initial reaction. Just a mess, those two. Maybe the wrench to the head was a little bit too much, Imogen. Now on to Noah and Mouse. They did Noah so dirty in this season. There was nothing going for her except for the introduction of Jen, which was just unnecessary and felt shoehorned in for some reason. I especially don't like the way the writers went about it. The whole romanticism of cheating. Noah ends up looking like a huge asshole that didn't even seem to love Sean at all, since Jen reveals that they had a thing way back in their juvie days. And like, Sean's been a great boyfriend and he didn't deserve that, like none of it. At this rate, they should have just killed him off to give her some character development, or anybody, since the show was so afraid to kill everybody while also teasing that it would kill everybody. Bottom line, honestly, other than the love triangle, this was Noah's whole storyline this season. That's it, which is disappointing. She does get another chase scene in this season, but it's so forced and theatrical with the Friday the 13th footage and music intercut in the back with Jen swooping in to save the day. Just no tension or stakes and ruined the scene. It could have been done right, but it missed the mark here, unfortunately. Oh, and speaking of relationships, almost forgot, Mouse and Ash's relationship suffers lack of screen time this season, so, well, I guess it's no surprise as to why I almost forgot to mention it. Anyways, back to the test thing though. They're also just that, tests. They aren't kills or even attempts, and the other ones beyond this, such as Farron's strength test or Mouse escaping the pizza place fire, it's just so gutless and feels like fluff because they are too scared to kill off any of the characters that actually matter. Anyways, speaking of Mouse, she annoyed me this season. Her obsession with spooky spaghetti and internet addiction are just unimportant and too silly. Even though she was seeing Dr. Sullivan with the rest of her friends, this internet obsession never went anywhere and wasn't brought up. Following that, the concept of Bloody Rose was actually interesting, and I think that keeping the mystery all season was really the only thing the season had going for it. And it still failed at that. Circling back though, I just really didn't like that each of the girls had a final girl test. It was extremely predictable when they started, as we knew to expect the girls to survive, obviously. And the test itself was foreshadowed way too heavily early on that they just felt like they're wasting time. And Tabby's being the final one was really predictable, and the reveal was telegraphed from a mile away. Hello, Scream 2. Speaking of, what I found really insulting was who the villains of Pretty Little Liars Summer School turned out to be. Mrs. Langsbury is Bloody Rose. Yeah, Rose Waters was just a red herring, along with Dr. Sullivan being a red herring too. Oh god, don't even get me started on how they butchered her character from the OG series and then killed her, leaving her fate in the aftermath unknown to everyone. But yeah, anyways, Mrs. Langsbury and Wes orchestrated the whole spooky spaghetti site and community in an attempt to make what he thinks is a great live movie of people being killed, which in turn supposedly is supposed to make him a great filmmaker, while Miss Langsbury is pulling a Mrs. Loomis. Hard. Anyways, like the first season, you have one person actually killing and the other person being the mastermind, like Archie and Principal Clanton. And just like the first season, I'm disappointed here too. Chip's mom is such an obvious choice, and Wes had always been annoying and a bad dude. Original Sin didn't surprise me with the reveals at all, and the involvement of the moms actually made it interesting for a change, but it all falls apart at the end and is dropped completely in season 2. The killers in Original Sin just didn't work. The principal wasn't shown enough, and there was no indication that he could be involved. No one cares once it's revealed it's him. Similar to Scream 3's reveal, where Sydney's just kind of like, you. Who are you again? Along with A not even being someone we personally know. Those shock values really missed the mark in the first season, and it wasn't any different in Pretty Little Liars Summer School, except this time we got too many hints, even when the writers were trying to throw us off with Dr. Sullivan and Davy potentially being Bloody Rose. The red herrings, it just didn't work. And speaking of Dr. Sullivan, I admit I did think it was cool that they brought back an OG Pretty Little Liars character, but this time she's made to be a red herring so much, and the whole time we know she isn't Bloody Rose. It's just too obvious and lame, and then they further ruined her character when at the end she calls the liars narcissists and is happy with what she got from them for her book, which is apparently a huge success already with publishers and shit before it's even been released. She doesn't get to milk the success for long before Archie, who, surprise, actually didn't die in the prison riot, barges in and kills her. And look, I know this is a common thing with horror movies that the killer is never really dead, or as Dr. Sullivan says, the boogeyman never goes away, aka a play on how Dr. Loomis would reference Michael Myers. But I really did not want to see Archie again. He serves no purpose anymore and barely made an impact in the first season beyond being A. Overall, this season was even worse than the first. Meaningless characters, very, very little deaths, no chases or tension, no stakes, weird connections to Riverdale, like no, just no. The, again, constant talk about horror and horror movies and Final Girls when the show is too scared to feature any of that in full. Also, it's Final Girl, singular. If you make it plural, it doesn't mean Final Girl anymore. And none of these 5 even went through something truly deadly to be considered a final girl beyond the bullshit tests and teasing. Look, if you want a genuine mystery and slasher, I would recommend Slasher, the TV series, Scream Queens, if you're into campy fun, Harper's Island, or you know what, do yourself a favor and watch the OG Pretty Little Liars again. At least within that mess, there's still some fun to be had with at least more genuinely intriguing storylines, characters that are flawed but have charm, and just an overall better sense of identity. That show knew what it was, confusing messes, random siblings and all. This show had no idea what it was and completely fumbled what could have been a series that spanned on for maybe just as long as the OG series. So as far as my general thoughts go for the season here, it's not too different from what I said about season 1. Again, just very lackluster characters, no A, talking about horror and how horror themed the show is instead of actually doing it and committing. Nobody truly felt in danger or as if there was a killer on the loose. The whole church thing was stupid. People like Sandy and Pastor whoever died. No one said anything forever. It's like the town is aware and unaware of the killer's presence at the same time, and it's just not a good choice. The town going crazy at the end towards the liars or whoever these internet people were was so dumb and wildly out of place when we're supposed to be in a slasher. The finale wasted so much time with these internet mob bozos. Look, I could go on, but we've got more to talk about as far as what I think the show's biggest issues were, so let's go ahead and move on because at this rate, I'll be here all day. And look, I know there's a few of you who adored this show. Look, I only wish I could share the same sentiment, so moving on to some of the show's biggest issues for me are as follows. The bizarre Riverdale connections. Look, you created Riverdale. You managed to get a shitty series to last for as long as you did. Let it go. None of us liked it after a certain point. Like, we don't want to see it anymore. Just stop. Then you've got the weakest slasher element. No characters to really root for. Again, the OG girls had charm, personality, and chemistry. These girls coming together because of their moms was an interesting choice, but it didn't help the chemistry between them. It just didn't feel as believable. Speaking of the moms, the shift away from the moms in season 1, yeah, I don't know, I wish they would have just stuck with one consistent story. When the moms fell off, it just got even messier. Then you have no slasher elements despite everything in the show's marketing and shit saying it was a slasher. I've talked about this enough already, I just can't. Don't put Cruel Summer and snippets of chases and murder when your season is nearly 2% of that at best. Trying to smile, but the air is so heavy and dry. The girls aren't terrible, but to be honest, only 2 of them have enough redeeming qualities to make the show enjoyable by the end of season 2. The show also tries too hard to connect with the OG show in such bizarre ways. This show felt extremely different, so adding in characters from the OG show or mentioning them just kind of took me out. No A in season 2, Bloody Rose was lame, not because of the appearance, but the fact that they barely did shit. Also, just a rehash of Scream 2 with less than half the deaths or impact. A in season 1 wasn't even a good reveal since it was someone who we didn't know as well as Principal Clanton, and then they still managed to F up season 2's reveal by making it too forced and obvious. Now, rapid fire round. No main character deaths. Jen's character as a whole is just No. The mistreatment of Sean's character, the slaughter of Noah's character, the show throwing around profanity every 5 lines, but barely gives any on-screen kills or gore despite constantly talking about it. Kelly not dying. I mean, come on, why is she still alive? Why? You know what? If it's any consolation, I will say, at the very least, both seasons' opening credits 8.
Got a secret, can you keep it? Swear this one you'll save.
Alright, now that we've gotten through why I believe it was canceled, because I mean the ratings and all didn't seem to be the cause, it really seems like they just didn't care enough to give this show a consistent story and direction to anchor a series of 5+ seasons. In 2022, it threw everything that was relevant to horror at the wall and saw what stuck. They carried that over into season 2 with the whole craze of going back to the 80s, which can work if done well. It's been seen before. Here, it just seemed like a cheap way to get nostalgia thrown in, along with pretty 20-somethings as high schoolers being lightly stalked by the lamest TV show killer I've ever seen. Having all the time in the world for toxic romance and whatever other CW shit I've blocked out. In the end, the show didn't work, and they didn't seem to care if it did because it's been canceled at season 2. That being said, the show really had potential, so for me, here are some of the things that I believe could have helped the show. And please, feel free to disagree with me down in the comments below. I'd love to get some other perspectives. I mean, y'all have been going wild on Reddit. Definitely let me know down in the comments below what worked for you, what didn't work for you. I need the engagement. All right, now getting into how it could have improved and saved itself, in my opinion. For starters, is that the horror could have taken an actual front seat instead of just being talked about. This was advertised as a horror show, not CW, Gossipy Girl, the One Tree Hill shit. It was marketed as a slasher horror show. Had that not been so dull, I think it really could have worked if the characters felt more expendable. And look, I get it, it's an ensemble, so you kind of can't, but with a slasher show, or so it seemed, you gotta take some risks. Hell, even killing one of the girl's boyfriends off, or even the parents, since they kind of didn't matter anymore at that point besides Tabby's mom, like that could have raised some stakes right there. But this show just plays it too safe like most shows aimed at younger viewers do. On top of it giving you its intriguing marketing, a solid opening, and surprising deaths so early on, it then perpetually slows down and plays it safe by not killing any of the characters that are actually loved. Had it just not given any Fs and kept no one safe, it could have done better. This show maybe would have done better as an established limited series, or maybe somehow as an anthology from the get-go, so it could be treated like an actual slasher mystery instead of just dressing itself up as one. The first season also could have just cut the whole principal reveal and made someone actually worth being surprised about and feel a sense of betrayal. I mean, yeah, we knew the story and what their moms did, but like, it just didn't have that impact. And then Imogen being pregnant the whole first season. Like, come on, do you want to see a pregnant teen get slashed? No, neither do I. So of course, no, she's not gonna die, but like, come on, don't make it so obvious. But in general, I think the girls did fine, the liars, but if only they had a better connection, I don't know. I feel like it could have just added a little bit more strength to the ensemble. Then you've got the whole SA storylines too, just uncomfortable. And again, they're important topics, so I get why they're featured, but just in this show, it could have benefited from cutting that and featuring a more slasher-esque storyline instead. Then you've got the whole shift from there being an A who already wasn't really an A in season 1 to having virtually no A in season 2 was sloppy. The whole transition to that was sloppy, especially since the new killer didn't make an impact at all. It could have been done a little more smoothly had it been thought out a little bit more. The whole spooky spaghetti thing too was just dumb. It was all Mouse talked about, this stupid copycat of creepypasta. Just dumb. Even her boyfriend was over it since he barely played a role in this season. Although given Mouse's first season storyline, I guess this was better. But yeah, she could have been given more to work with. Imogen's dad and his story was a waste of time, could have been cut. Christian not being a killer or a creep was a missed opportunity. I know it would have been obvious, but more obvious than the grief-stricken mother. Look, there was ways that it could have been done properly and still been surprising. I liked his masks. I thought they were creepy and cool. His character should have gotten more to do. The church shit should have been cut. The gay couple were assholes to Imogen and they served no real purpose other than being dicks. Noah being turned into a cheater and then attacking Sean's car after he had all the right to be upset and never got physical. The constant said threat of the killer with no payoff could have been avoided by actually featuring more deaths and chases and tension and slasher mayhem like the show promised in its marketing. Like, that's what we want to see, and you focus more so on all this unnecessary filler bullshit that no one asked for and doesn't even match the campiness of the OG series. What are you doing? Also, final girls. Not a thing. It's final girl. Now, am I saying all 4 of the liars should have died so there could have been 1? No, I'm a feminist. But the whole final girl thing was so over the top and overused that it meant nothing, since nothing truly happened to them that would warrant final girl status. Even the boyfriends all made it out without even an ambulance needed. I mean, come on! Also, both of the killers lived. Again, we don't even get the satisfying killer deaths. I hated Scream 5, but if you think I don't rewatch Scream 5 every now and then just to see that crazy bitch burst into flames, you were sadly mistaken. This show seemed like it wanted to be Scream and Halloween mixed with Pretty Little Liars so bad, and ended up with nothing of the sort. Bottom line, had the show had real and genuine slasher roots, with tense chases, surprising deaths, clever slasher movie references, light but subtle nods to the OG series, likable characters throughout the series with chemistry, no filler crap, no characters existing just to be hated, and just in general giving us the show that they seem to set out to do. Had this been a true slasher show with mystery, masked killer chases, deaths, creepy texts and shit, I'd have been all in. But that's just unfortunately not what this show was. Hopefully the show doesn't have its final nail in the coffin just yet, though the actresses have already posted about it. Fans are pretty relentless, so I kind of hope that there is some kind of way to get them to bring it back. There they can maybe focus on giving a show that's actually scary, fun, and delivers on what it promises to, and can maybe even pay homage to the OG show without getting out of hand. And no Riverdale stuff. Fuck Riverdale. In the end though, I hope this show really does find another life, genuinely, despite how much shit I gave it today, because I mean, there's been other Pretty Little Liars spin-offs, such as Ravenswood. Like I said, I've never seen it, but it touched on the supernatural and didn't really fit into the Pretty Little Liars narrative. Then you have Pretty Little Liars, The Perfectionists. Also, haven't seen it. Should I? Heard it was canceled on a cliffhanger too, so. Anyways, my point though is that it seems like it's kind of difficult to get the Pretty Little Liars formula down the way that the OG show did. Unfortunately, Original Sin and Summer School looks for now to be another one of the failed attempts, but given the talented actors and actresses in the show, I truly believe that with some tweaks and changes with the story and direction overall, they may just be able to bring this one back from the dead one day. Alright guys, well that about wraps up this video. This is probably the longest video that I've done on my channel in a while, so not gonna give you the whole epilogue. If you liked what you saw, leave a like and comment. If you really liked what you saw, hit the subscribe button. It'll really help the channel out a lot, and it will be deeply appreciated. As always, I couldn't do this without you guys. I love you all, and I'll see you soon.